And welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of the Skating Penguin Network Mailbag. This will be part one for this week. We got a good bunch of questions from an array of listeners, like always, so we thank you for that. Some for this week and some for future episodes, like we asked, so we really appreciate that. So before we dive into the questions, it's Robbie once again here, as always, and across the country on the other end of the mic is Snail. Um, as you guys well know how these work by now. Snell, how is it on your Monday, July 15th out there in the Pacific Northwest?
It's a beautiful sunny Monday out here. Really, it's a nice. It's like 75 degrees, so not too hot. Bluebird day. Spent all day at the lake yesterday. We
Nice,
lost one of
nice.
our good friends over during COVID, so every year we have a memorial lake day function for him. So I spent all day at the lake yesterday, and that was awesome. Just got kind of sunburned, but
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice amount of sunburn. Saw a lot of people barbecued. It was awesome. And then today, back to the grind, working, pressure washing a house today. So nice and refreshing on this hot day. How is it out there in Western PA, Robbie?
Very hot. It was about 95 out here today.
Oh,
Dry
God.
as can be.
Oh, so
It's
no humidity?
no humidity, thankfully. It's very low humidity, but tomorrow they're calling for another 90-degree day, and then the temperature looks like it's going to break toward the end of the week and become much more manageable. We definitely need some rain. There may be some rain coming tomorrow. There may not be. It's kind of hit or miss, but we need rain desperately here. But yeah, today was another cooker, about 95 when I left work. And it's going to remain there pretty much till the sun goes down. But
Oh
yeah,
my
it's
God.
hot out here in Western Pennsylvania and the entire East Coast right now.
That's wild. Does it rain? Do you guys get because you guys are in like Appalachia, right? So like do you
Mm-hmm.
guys have like pretty wet summers?
We can. Sometimes we don't get the rain. Sometimes it'll be kind of split in two. We'll have a very wet up until like early July, from like May to July, and then it'll just completely dry out the back half of the summer. This year's been pretty parched. Besides a few weeks in the early June, but we're definitely begging for some rain right now. It crunches when you walk on the grass.
Oh, that's never good.
No,
That is never good.
no.
Well, um yep, summer is doing its thing and it's definitely sunk in. The Stanley Cup was awarded how many weeks ago now?
Three.
It 3 weeks ago. It's
Yeah.
it's bleak right now. Not a lot of hockey news. We are in the doldrums of the off season. I think we can officially say, can't we, Rob?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, and it's unless something big happens, it's not going to pick up anytime soon.
Correct. So we got a bunch of questions here. That some of them are hockey related. Actually, it looks like most of these this week are or this on this Monday are hockey related ones. So let's dive into some questions. And to kick us off here is our pal Brian, and he asks you. Are you happy with PP Jaints no longer having RC Cola products and now having Coca Cola products?
As a Coca-Cola first person, yeah, I am happy with this. I remember back when the arena was not even technically open yet, and they announced that RC Cola was the leading beverage provider. It was kind of like, what? You spent all this money on a multi-million-dollar stadium, and RC Cola is your beverage provider? It was very weird. As time went on, you just got used to it. You didn't really even think too much about it, but I definitely think that's definitely a big time that has FSG's fingerprints all over it. They are probably like, if we want to get as much value out of this as possible, we need the top name brands here representing us. I'm sure they've done work with Coke in other places, especially like Fenway Park with the Red Sox. I'm sure they um, are tied in with Coke there. I'm sure they have a relationship with them. But RC stuck around for, it opened in 2010, so almost 14 years, which is pretty impressive for a brand that most people weren't even sure even existed anymore. So, yeah, RC's out, Coke's in, and I could not be happier. Definitely better than Pepsi, but um, I don't like very many Pepsi products. I like Mountain Dew, but uh, if I'm getting just a staple cola, it's got to be Coke for me. Okay. And we got Brian here again here, and we've kind of alluded to when Sid's going to sign his extension, and Brian says, should we expect a contract extension announcement on Sid on 8/7, August 7th, given his superstitious nature?
Yeah, I think I called this a
You
couple
did, yep.
weeks ago. I wanted ASAP, and I think we actually talked about this ironically on July 8th. So the opposite set, we talked about this on 7/8, and I was like, maybe they'll do it today, but it didn't happen. And I was saying if they didn't do it that day, they're going to do it on August 7th, and it's going to probably be for 8.7 million
I
or
mean,
something.
it's very funny. Like if we find out then that the deal's actually been done since like July, like mid July, and they're just like we couldn't announce it until 8/7 because Sid wouldn't let us.
I mean, I have a feeling that they already had. I mean, it's been tucked away in a drawer since probably July 1st. Like they
Yeah, he just
probably just
can't. Yeah,
got it done.
he just can't
Because
officially sign it until 8/7 because he doesn't want to put any. It has to be signed and dated 8/7, or to him it's not legitimate.
when he's done it this way so far his whole career, why stop now? You know.
Yeah,
But yeah, that thing's been in Dubis's drawer for almost a month now, and or not a month, about a half a month now, and it's just not going to see the light of day until 8/7. So that's what I think. If it comes out at any other point, I would actually be like super puzzled, like why they made us wait. Sid wants to enjoy his summer too. Like it's
oh
not
yeah,
like he wants. He probably was like, let's, I'm coming back to Pittsburgh. Much to the chagrin of Canadian media, I'm going to be back in Pittsburgh. I'm going to end my career there.
mm-hmm.
Let's put pen to paper and get this done so I can go to Lake Muskoka or wherever it is. He's up in he's up in Halifax, so he's probably out there on the boat, on the
Yeah,
pontoon,
yep.
taking a rip on the lake, and that it's in a drawer somewhere. So it's going to come out on August 7th. You could put you could put your shekels on that. Or Robbie, what if nothing happens? What if 8/7 comes and goes and there's nothing?
Then I think people would start freaking out.
Would you freak out?
Probably not, but that would be like more of an eyebrow raise for me because
Not
I still
even like
think.
a little bit?
Nah, I'd be like, interesting, but I still think he's gonna get something done. So, um, maybe he just wants to do it 8/8 just to see if everybody freaks out.
Just to give everyone a little heart attack. It was
Yeah,
a leap year this year, so he's
it
like, it's
was. Yeah,
actually 8/8.
yeah, yep.
All right, moving on to a question from Brian again, and he says, "Do you think the plan with Ned is he plays 45% of the game so Jari doesn't get burnt out in the second half of the season?" And Brian thinks that that's literally the biggest problem with Jari. So a little bit of a two-parter there. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and like 45% is obviously just short. I think I broke it down to like 45, 38, or wait, 45, 44, 40, or 38 or something like that in terms of games played. I'd like to see, I think, more of a 60-40 split, which would be more of a, um, it would give Jari a little more playing time. I don't necessarily mind Nedeljkovic getting a bulk of those starts in the first half of the season because it definitely seems like there's some kind of wear issue with Jari. But my only issue with that is at this point that wear issue shouldn't be there. He's had plenty of time in the NHL. It's not at some point it's no longer a wear issue. It's either a not very good issue in general or there's some kind of just he's injury prone kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the case, the less taxing of a season he can have, you you give Nedeljkovic as many starts as possible, keep Jari as healthy as possible, keep him as um, rested as possible. So yeah, 45%. I don't know if I want to get that close to 50 if Jari's playing well, but anything over 50% for Ned is probably not a very good sign for anybody. But I'd like to see more of a 60-40 split. If possible, with maybe a chunk of those coming in the first half and keep Jari fresh for the second half. That way he's rested, but also not rusty. Sticking with Brian here, I asked about Sergei Murashov last week, that the prospect goaltender for the Penguins. Where do you think he plays next season, meaning this coming season? He's getting high. He's getting high comparisons to Andrei Vasilevsky, which is wild with him being so young.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I one of my gripes I think with like Craig Button and like a lot of these analysts is whenever they're like grading prospects, whether it's a goaltender or a forward, I feel like they always find a comparison. They're like, he really reminds me of Kucherov, and I'm just like, dude, he's like he's 19 years old and been playing in the OHL for 3 years. Like, Kucherov is a future Hall of Famer. Are you really? And like, yeah, there's like Murashov. They're like, he's the next Vasilevsky, and it's like, is it because he's just a pretty good Russian goaltender, or like, is it because he seems like he is never going to lose 2 playoff games back to back for 2 years? Like, I don't know. Sometimes you got to take these comparisons with a grain of salt. I'm sure you all know that. I'm sure Robbie, you take them with a grain of salt. But where I think Murashov's going to play, according to actually I don't know who actually broke it, but I guess within the last week, Murashov has said he's taking time to figure out where he's playing next year, whether that be back in Russia or in North America in some capacity. Whether it would be, I mean, I doubt, unless he's just like absolutely stellar, he wouldn't make the Penguins roster. But definitely would like to see him get some time in Wilkes-Barre. See him and Blomqvist sharing the net there would be nice. Have both of it'd be nice to just know that he's in North America playing North American hockey, and that's where I'd like to see him play. And I don't know, Robbie, what kind of stuff do you think Murashov, like, he's been over in Cranberry for the prospect camp? Do you think that there's anything that he's looking for at prospect camp to help make his decision? Like, does he want to be on a competitive Wilkes-Barre team? Does he want a shot to make the Penguins right out of like camp type of deal? Do you think he's weighing his options, kind of looking at what his opportunity looks like, or what do you think is going to help kind of determine whether or not he stays or not?
I think playing time is going to be a part of it, and I think that's a big thing for the Penguins too. If he's playing in Wilkes-Barre, what's the start split between him and Blomqvist? Obviously, over in Russia, he's probably going to get a bulk of the starts for whatever team he plays for and whatever league he plays for.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
How ready? Or again, it's tough to move from any country to the United States, let alone Russia. Not even just now, but just in general. You talk to past Russian players, how difficult that move can be. So yeah, it's all going to depend on his comfortability level, what his playing time's like, what the Penguins are comfortable with. Personally, I'd like to see him in Pittsburgh or in North America simply so he can get North American game action. If he is what they say he is, which looks to be very promising. So yeah, in my opinion, I think my gut says he's going to spend another year in Russia. My heart says do whatever you can to get him onto North American ice to start that next step in the development process.
Yeah, so I guess, dude, throughout 4 seasons in a Russian junior league, he had 22 shutouts and went 70, 30, and 12.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's on. Yeah.
I say get this guy to Wilkes. Do what you can to get him to Wilkes-Barre. And do you think that is there more excitement around Murashov than Blomqvist?
I think Murashov, to a lot of fans, if you aren't tuned in, is still a very unknown name. This is probably, for a lot of people, this may have been the first time hearing his name.
We've been hearing about him for a couple. We've been hearing about him for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's for like fans like us. Yeah, we definitely. There's been building excitement, but for your guys, your people that don't pay attention after the season's over through the summer, outside of looking at signings and stuff, this is maybe the first they've heard of him. Because again, most footage of him is grainy footage from Russia, maybe a few highlights here or there. You don't know exactly what the competition's like over there. So for us, yeah, I think there's definitely been building hype for the past few years. But for some people, they're probably like, interesting prospect. Let's see where it goes. First time I'm hearing about him. It seems to be good.
Agreed. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I could see him easily going back to Russia. I think, and maybe that would be good going back. He'd play for his hometown team, the Locomotive, I believe they're called. Um, and that's more. I'd rather have him almost have a year of that than Russian juniors.
Yeah.
I think you probably feel the same way. It's probably going back to Russia though. Let him. They can be patient. They have a bunch of goaltenders right now, so he can kind of marinate.
Yeah.
All right, another question from Brian for Rob here, and he asks, "Do you believe Sid will become the second player in NHL history to score 2,000 points?"
I think it's going to kind of be like Ovechkin, where if he wants it, he's going to get it. I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was John Butchergross had a tweet. This is back when the regular season was still going on. He said Crosby, I think, would have to play to 42, averaging like 63 points a year. And that's just like the baseline. So that's not factoring if Crosby goes the next 2 years potting, let's say 90 points a season. That obviously that brings that number down significantly. I think again, you're going to evaluate on a season by season basis. There's no guarantees in sports, especially hockey. I mean, where would Crosby be now points wise if he doesn't miss all that time in 2012 or 2011, 2012, 2013 till he's back healthy? Yeah, I think there's definitely a real shot he gets it. I'm not going to say 100% guaranteed, but I'll say it's a toss up right now. This is something I'd like to revisit at the end of next season. If he goes out and pots another 90, 95 points, all of a sudden that average comes down significantly more. He still has, you have to figure if he signs, let's call it a 3-year extension, he wants 4 more years. That'll take him to, I believe, 40, 41. At that point, you have to think he's going to be knocking on the door. So I'm going to say that he has a 50-50 shot, all depending on what his plans are for the rest of his career.
So he's got 1,596 total points. Let's just round that up to on a good weekend he'd have 1,600. So he needs 400 points. He's 36. You give it a 50-50 chance?
So 400 points, let's say he plays out the rest of this. Let's say he signs a 3-year deal. He has 400 points left on 4 years. He ain't gonna average 100 points a year in that time. So let's say he averages
60.
60. Let's say he goes 90, 85. I think then you're in the ballpark of we're talking about him playing until he gets 2,000.
Yeah, I never want to doubt Sid. I've never been one to doubt Sid, but it's just father time, right? Like he's just getting older. And
yeah. It comes for everyone. I mean, it happens. So we'll see.
Love to see him get it though.
Yeah. All right. Brian is done for this episode. So we're going over to Kim Larson. Do you see someone taking Jari off her hands? If yes, who?
I think there's more teams that are looking for like a franchise goalie than probably than maybe people think. I think that in the East, let's see here. The Montreal Canadiens, they need a franchise goalie. They're in the midst of a rebuild, but they've got a lot of cornerstone pieces. They've gotten the first overall pick in Uri Slafkovsky. They picked up that Nick Suzuki off of Vegas in a good trade, and he looks like he's potentially the next Bergeron. They've got Cole Caulfield, sniper, kind of cut from the same cloth as a DeBrincat. They've got a couple of defensemen too. I'm spacing on their names, but my point is that they're looking to solidify all their positions to start really moving forward and being competitive. And I think they got rid of Allen, and then they got Jake Allen was one of their goalies for a long time, and they have a younger guy Montembeault, who's he's probably a backup goalie on a team that's rebuilding, and he's a starter right now. So they could use a starting goaltender, and I could see Montreal putting their hand up for a guy like Jari. I thought Ottawa would be a great place for him, but they kind of figured out their goalie situation in that trade for Ullmark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked up Ullmark from Boston. I wonder about a team that the Penguins have done a little business with in recent years with the St. Louis Blues. Obviously, with the Kevin Hayes trade, I think they traded maybe a bag of peanuts for him this year, and then they traded Kapanen there as well. They've got Binnington, and Binnington had that magical run with them in 2019 when they won the Cup, but he's just not really been that dominant, solid goaltender. I think he kind of looks. I feel like year after year, they kind of are fading into irrelevancy a little bit, and with that, Jordan is as well. Jari's, I don't know the age-wise, but I could see them maybe putting their hand up for a guy like Jari. I wonder about the Buffalo Sabres. I know that they've got that Devin Levi kid who they're super high on, but he got a little bit of a run last year, and it did not go well for him. He needs time to marinate. Still, he came out of college last year, and they've got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, one of the best names in hockey. And who else did they have? I think that might be it. So I could see Jari fitting in at a place like Buffalo. Who else is there, Robbie? There's I think that the Colorado Avalanche have hitched their wagon to Georgiev. But at times he looked shaky last year, especially in the playoffs. And I mean, Jari, he's with, he has his warts too, but we saw what they did with a guy like Darcy Kemper and their structure that they play, and they're so good defensively. Maybe I always thought that Colorado might be, everyone talks about Sid to Colorado. What about Jari to Colorado? I think he'd fit in nicely there. What about Utah Hockey Club? They've got Karel Vejmelka and Connor Ingram, I think.
I mean, if they'd want to send Vejmelka back,
I would absolutely take Vejmelka back.
Vejmelka was somebody I lobbied for last summer when we weren't sure what Jari's future was. Before you joined the podcast with Garrett, I lobbied very hard for Vejmelka being a potential replacement for Jari should they move on from him.
Yeah, I think that I would take Karel Vejmelka. That Connor Ingram seems good for them, but why not have a little tandem going on with Jari and Ingram? I think the Anaheim Ducks, for a long time I said that we should trade 1-for-1 Gibson Jari, but Gibson makes too much money, and I think that Lucas Dostal guy that they've got, I think he's their next guy.
Yeah.
The Calgary Flames, Jari's from BC, Western Canada. I always wondered if Calgary would put their hand up. They just got rid of their franchise starting goaltender in Markstrom. He's in New Jersey now. They've got this Dustin Wolf kid who actually played in Everett out here for the Everett Silvertips in the WHL. He's on their entry-level contract. Dustin's been shaky at times when he's gotten his little stretches in the NHL. A guy like Jari might be good for that team, especially with no expectations. Jari could even, maybe if he could get a couple of good years in Calgary, maybe that might raise his value and he could go to a contender. You never know. So,
yeah.
What about Chicago? Chicago doesn't have. They have Mrazek.
Chicago's an interesting, an interesting name to throw out there. I didn't think of that.
They have that Mrazek guy who I think he's on his last legs in the NHL. They don't. They've got another guy, Arvid Soderblom, who, it's. I don't really know what he is or what what their plans are for a guy like him, but. Someone's got to be there stopping pucks for Bedard and all these guys that are coming up in what Chicago hopes to be another dynasty. So I don't know. Jari might be a good veteran to plug in there.
Yeah.
And I think Chicago might have a plethora of assets, draft picks.
Oh, they have a plethora of assets. Yeah. And again,
totally.
You're not going to get a first round pick or something like that, but a plethora of assets for sure.
Yeah, they have a plethora of assets, and I would have
entire point right now is to have as many draft assets as possible.
Totally. So those are some teams that I could see maybe maybe throwing their hand up. I feel like if I was Dubas, which I'm not, but I sometimes think as though I am, I might be picking up the phone, giving some of those guys a call, and being like, "Are you interested?"
Yeah.
But we'll wait and see. Like you've always said, Robbie, the Carlson trade, didn't come till like August, right? So you never know what they're going to do with a guy like Jari. I think a lot of us are hoping that they move on from him. And Jari, yeah, this isn't any shade either, but like, how like some players you're like, please get him out of our conference. I don't want to play him. I
Yeah,
don't mind if Jari's still in the like. They could trade him
fair,
to Philly, and I wouldn't really care.
fair.
All right, and we'll move on from the goalie talk. I know that we'll probably discuss Jari and goaltending numerous more times before the puck drops in October, but we'll move on to another question here from our German pal Andreas Castle, and he asks you, Robbie, do the Pens instantly retire 87 when Sid calls it a day, and could 87 be retired in the whole league? Gretzky.
So very few players do I think should be retired instantly, and Lemieux was one. Crosby should, in Pittsburgh at the very least, Crosby should be number two. For the league, I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. You don't see many players wearing 66. I don't necessarily disagree, or I don't necessarily agree with Gretzky being retired across the league. Again, that comes from definitely a bias there on if you're going to retire 99, you have to retire 66 because 66 was a better player. Okay, I hope some Edmonton fans are listening.
Gretzky said that.
Yeah. I think if you're going to retire 90, again, look at what Lemieux overcame. He overcame cancer, came back, was dominant as ever coming back from literal cancer, numerous back problems. Again, hypotheticals, yeah, if he's healthy for even half as long as he was injured, he probably sets every record in the book, and we're having a complete conversation. But unfortunately, I can't change history like that. But I think 87 is as close to instant in Pittsburgh as you possibly can be. Maybe the next season, like say he retires, and it's just like maybe not like the night he retires, but like early the next season, whenever that is. Obviously, it's never going to be worn in Pittsburgh again. But like again, 71 and 58 are never going to be worn in Pittsburgh again, either. So that's no big issue. I think there'll be a little bit of weight on those two guys, though. Not a long wait, but a little wait. But yeah, for me, Crosby he retires at the end of, let's say, 2033. October 2033, his jersey's in the rafters. I think it's about, unless he wants to let it breathe for a year, just to be like step away from the rink and get his face, because to let the new guys, kind of the new face of the franchise, kind of take over, whoever that may be. Maybe he says, okay, let's just let it breathe for a year. But I think he's about as locked in as an instant retirement jersey-wise for the Penguins as 66.
He's waving goodbye at his final season, and they just drop the retired jersey banner, and like as he's exiting the ice before he's even gotten to the locker room.
Right as the final horn goes off, they just like drop the banner.
I wouldn't be mad at it. Does Sid does he get a statue in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, you're gonna there's no absolutely. My thinking always was they would do a dual statue with him and Malkin holding the Stanley Cup together, like they did in that one picture after 2017. Something like that. Again, Sid has oodles of iconic moments that you can make a statue out of. They could do that as well. But I definitely think he's getting a statue, absolutely getting a statue, simply because you have to. He kept the Penguins in Pittsburgh. I mean, he is a franchise icon in every way that Mario was, short of owning the team. He is the Penguins for this generation, for an entire generation of fans, for kids that did not grow up with 66 or 68. He is he is the Penguins. It's as simple as that.
Does he have to wait 3 years to get into the Hall of Fame?
I would say no, but I think they will. Yeah.
You think they'll make him wait?
I think they will.
Did they make Gretzky wait?
I believe they did.
Really?
Yeah, I believe everybody. Unless something tragic happened, I'm pretty sure everybody had to wait. Even Lemieux had to wait.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think that I
I mean, if
agree.
Tom Brady's not going right in right away, I don't know if Sidney Crosby's going in right away. So
Are you saying Brady's better than Crosby in their respective
I
sports?
mean, he's the GOAT of football. I mean, most popular sport in America. So I mean, kind of a comparison there.
Okay.
All right, and wrapping up this episode, we have Kim Larson back with another one. An interesting question here dealing with kind of money and contracts. And they ask, would you change the rules for teams in tax-free states so teams wouldn't benefit from it? Meaning being able to use that as a selling point um, for free agents. Barry Trotz went out saying that he thinks they have an advantage, maybe not on the big players, but players in the middle.
Well, first of all, I think Barry Trotz is neglecting to mention that it's Nashville, and Nashville is a hell of a city. I don't think
Nashville
there's
is
a
a pretty incredible place.
I don't think a ton of players would ever be upset with the idea of playing in a city like Nashville.
Yeah.
And also, what is he talking about? Maybe not the big. He just signed Steven Stamkos
And
and Jonathan Marchessault,
yeah,
and
I
they
don't know.
have
Yeah, very
Roman
weird.
Yossi and UC Saros. They had
Yeah.
Pecorine. Like that's a lot of big players, Robbie, that have had no problems. I mean, I don't, and I don't know, but yes, to the point of Kim's question, I've thought about this a lot, and for a long time, I thought that they should change this. They should make some sort of rule so it's even. But then I thought that just complicates things, and I don't like it. I want
Yeah,
Toronto
and
to keep overpaying. I
that
want
gets
them to
really
have to keep
messy.
overpaying, and I want Toronto to continue to suffer. I want that. So no, I think
It
that
just
they
gets
shouldn't.
it gets so convoluted. Like, I mean, again, that's an advantage those teams have. And like, if you notice, like most of those states are in non-traditional markets, and those are markets the NHL wants to prop up. Florida's a big one. I don't know all of Tennessee. I actually didn't realize Tennessee is like that, but I will say a lot of these states, though they don't charge income tax, often taxes on other parts of your person can be a little bit higher. They can charge very high property taxes, very high real. They have to make up the gap somewhere. So they might charge higher taxes in other places to make up for some of that loss. So it's not necessarily everybody says zero on income tax, which is obviously a significant savings, but it's not always um,
It's
always
not
a
like
really
I mean they're gonna get their piece of the pie, whether it's income.
yes,
Like you know what I mean?
yes.
It's not. It's just the big thing that people like to circle is that these tax free states, and I don't know, but it's like ultimately I don't think that they should try to like it. It's it makes it muddies the waters too much, and I feel like I can almost guarantee you that even if they did level a playing field, people are still going to choose to play in Nashville and South
Yeah,
Florida than
yeah.
Toronto
Yeah,
or
it's a
wherever.
completely different. Yeah, even when you get into the Canadian teams, is even a different equation. There's 9 states without income tax, and one, two, three, four, five of them have NHL teams. You have Alaska does not, and then Florida obviously has two. Nevada has the Golden Knights. New Hampshire has no one. South Dakota, I don't even know if they have people. Um, uh, Tennessee has the Predators. Texas has the Stars, and obviously Texas is always kind of in discussions to get another team. Washington surprised me; they have no state income tax, and Wyoming.
Washington State, right? Not DC.
Oh, there's no way they have no. There's no way they got away with no income tax in DC. Yeah, so um,
But I mean, dude, it's like a lot of these. I always hear, especially Toronto's media, griping that it's
oh
like,
well, that's their
well,
problem.
Sam Reinhart signed in Florida because it's great to play in a Canadian market, and when it's good, it's great. But he's going to sign in Florida because he'll take $8 million in it, and it's like no, it's because he just won a Stanley Cup in South Florida, and he gets to ride
Here's
jet skis around
here's the
in the
funny
winter.
thing about that argument. One, all both Tampa Bay teams, or sorry, both Florida teams combined for 4 Stanley Cups since any Canadian team last won a Stanley Cup. The Dallas Stars have won a Stanley Cup since then. Vegas has won a Stanley Cup since then.
LA's won a few.
LA, yeah, that's yeah. They obviously have the taxes out there. Nashville has burgeoned into a pretty much a regular contender um, out there. Steven Stamkos has played his entire career never paying a cent of income tax. He's also played in warm weather his entire career. Again, he's from Toronto. He's from Ontario. He knows what it gets like that in the winter. It will be a little bit cooler in Nashville in December, January, February, but it's still going to be a heck of a lot better than Nashville. And I will say one thing: like at his age, got that bank and does not have to deal with like a third, like 2/3 of the media pressure in Nashville that he'll have to deal with in Toronto.
No, he gets to go to Tootsie's and he gets to, there's like awesome, like he's raising a family. I mean, dude, it's like Nashville, that's like a no-brainer. It has nothing to do with.
Does he have kids?
I hear he has one. I know he's got.
Okay.
I've seen that. Haven't you seen that commercial? There's a commercial with Stammer, and it's like either, and I think he's like holding a kid, or like a baby,
okay.
or like.
Okay, maybe I don't know. You never like he seems like a very private person. You never really hear much about him, but it's just I mean, again you can't. That would get into like changing rules for tax-free states would get into an entire mess of one probably would need approval by the PA, the Players Association. They're never going to approve that. Two, there'd probably be litigation from the states themselves that you're penalizing them on some kind of entertainment tax or something like that. No, it's never going to happen. Again, that's a selling point. But again, Crosby could have left Pennsylvania to play in one of those tax-free states. Malkin could have. All these great
Malkin
players.
likes his money. Like he's, you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Malkin likes his money. Guys like Vegas has absurdly high taxes, and they built a Stanley Cup champion. I mean, that's not the defining difference between winning a Stanley Cup and not winning a Stanley Cup. There's no guarantee Nashville makes the playoffs next year. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But but I understand why guys want to go to Nashville. And it has nothing to do with taxes. Nashville's awesome. I can't speak for the rest of Tennessee because I've been to one place in Tennessee and that was Nashville. I went to the I think it was Lynchburg, Tennessee to go to the Jack Daniel's distillery. That's the only other place in Tennessee I was in. Nashville is awesome. So I would not fault anyone for wanting to go play in Nashville because it kicks ass.
I think it's as simple as that. A lot of these tax-free states, it's non-traditional markets. It's player. You got to put yourself in the minds of these players. Like, yeah, that the taxes, sure, that might play a little bit about it. But if it's like, I mean, when you're getting older, playing hockey in like a warm weather state where you don't have a true winter, and I don't know, like you look at the Florida Panthers. Like, did you see how much?
Yeah.
They're like, they all have like waterfront homes with jet skis on them, and I don't know, man. Like
in Nashville, you can get like absolute gigantic like mansion houses for, I'm talking pennies on the dollar, like much cheaper than you can even get them in Florida, because Florida you have with insurances and hurricanes and all that kind of stuff, a different kind of worry. But like you can go like Nashville, when we were down there, we were driving. Dude, you just pass like mansion after mansion, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's owned by a country music singer. That's owned by a guy that owns like the Titans. That house is owned." Like it's insane. Like, yeah, like I completely understand. I almost feel bad for the Arizona players having to go from playing in Arizona. Again, it was a disaster, ownership mess, but it's going to be much colder in winter in Salt Lake City than it would be.
Oh yeah, it's real winter.
Yeah, there's a reason they host the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City.
Totally. Arizona too, like it's funny because I feel like so many, like Arizona got like shit on for so long for not being competitive, but like, do you know how happy some hockey players were probably playing there, getting to golf in January? No pressure. They're out of the playoffs by November and they're just teeing it on probably maybe on Christmas Eve, getting to go. I don't know, just so the tax-free thing, Kim, I think you can get from what we're saying, it's never going to be changed. Nothing will be changed.
No, there's
Gary
too many.
Bettman's not going to like
No,
lobby for that.
no, there's no way. Any owner that complains about that's going to instantly get shot down by other owners. We'll never get past the PA. We'll probably never get past civil litigation at all. It would be too many hoops. Not a headache worth anyone's time, really. So, yeah, don't foresee any changes being made to that. That's just an advantage of living where you live.
Totally. So yeah, I guess that wraps it up this week as far as questions go. Robbie, I think we have to talk about this. Did you see Donald Trump almost get assassinated?
That was something else. I will say that.
That was in your home state.
It was roughly 2 hours away from where I was, where I live. Yeah, it was. We were going to dinner, and I just opened Twitter before going out of my house just to check, and I saw like a tweet that said, Donald Trump shot at rally or something like that, and I literally thought it was like, I saw the video and him like kind of react, and I literally thought it was like almost someone making fun of him getting like bit by a bug or something like that.
I thought the same thing, or someone threw a firecracker.
Yeah, and then like, and this was like right as it was like the first thing at the top of my feed, and then everybody, it was just, and then like all the Secret Service starts flying in and all that stuff, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is something legit is happening.
It's actually real.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I didn't even actually at first I didn't even know where he was, and then I saw like in Butler, I'm like, oh boy, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's west of Pittsburgh. Butler is actually it borders.
It's like by Ohio, isn't it?
Yeah, it borders it. The county borders Ohio, so it's closer to Pittsburgh than me, but it's roughly 2-ish hours, where I'm from. But yeah, it was quite a moment. That is something that I was very, very, very kind of crazy moment to just open Twitter to check before you walk out the door and see that flying through your news feed. It definitely unexpected.
Yeah, I was wine tasting with my partner and her sisters, and my phone buzzed, and it was like a news thing, and it was like Trump shot at rally, and I was like, no way. And I flick open my phone and I start reading through it, and then I Googled it just to see what news was. This was like 3 minutes after it happened, and there was just things pouring out being like, Trump shot at, Trump shots fired, sniper, gunman killed, and I was just like, holy smokes. We almost saw a JFK 2.0.
Yeah, nuts.
I saw some funny stuff. I'm sure you've seen all the videos of him. Of Trump.
Yeah.
Him, the fist pumps.
Yeah, afterward, yeah.
I was listening to this one guy talk. Do you know who Hassan Abi is?
Yep, I saw him react. I saw the video of him reacting to it live.
I was dying laughing when he screams. He was just like, oh my God. And then he's like, every fist pump is 10,000 overturned votes in key states.
Oh, jeez.
And all the like album covers coming out. They're already selling t-shirts of him.
Literally that night, I was watching TikToks of people selling shirts of that picture. Like literally like less than 2 hours later.
I was like jokingly going to send something to the group chat and be like, was that you, Garrett? But then I don't want the FBI scanning text messages and being like,
I am not posting anything even about anything that I wasn't posting anything about anything. Yeah. Just not risking anything at that point. So
the FBI scanning text messages, and I jokingly say, Garrett, was that you? And then the FBI shows up at Garrett's house, his new apartment.
Just bust down the door of his new apartment.
Garrett's in his drawers eating cereal, watching what's that show movie Cars?
Yeah, watching Cars and we didn't need that. We didn't need to do that to Garrett, but
we didn't need to do that to him. Yeah. He's suffering with shin splints still probably, but anyways, I thought we had to touch on that. I thought that was insane. Like that's first time in our lifetime that's happened, right?
That's gotten that. I mean, that's gotten like that, yeah.
Insanity. It's crazy times. It's not even that close to November yet. We still got a few months before the election really ramps up. So,
Yeah.
for those that listen to us and aren't from this country, well, it's an election year, and we have Joe Biden going against Donald Trump, and it is causing mass hysteria within the great country of America. So
I'm almost positive many of our foreign listeners are very up to date on what happened this weekend. So
probably, and you know what? They get to watch this all unaffected, all the madness of this, because they live in their own respective countries, and they get to watch the United States like it's a drama TV show.
Except Brian. Brian has to suffer with us.
Except Brian. In fact, yeah, he's Brian is in the muck with us.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got, Robbie.
All right, so that will wrap up Mailbag Part 1. Unless something changes with some news or something, we'll be back with Part 2. If you guys listen to this between now and then and have any more questions, feel free to just jump on that tweet, throw them in there. We'll pull some from that. I know Brian and some others asked a good bit of future-looking questions for some content because, as Snail said at the beginning, we have definitely entered the doldrums of hockey content this year. So for Snail, I'm Robbie. We are going to wrap this one up. You guys have a good rest of your week. Stay cool wherever you are. We'll talk to you guys later.